Okay, so this is my lab safety video. So some general lab rules. Some general lab rules. Number one is always wear protective eyewear when in the lab. And number two is no horse playing while in the lab. Those are just some general lab rules. Now to rules when operating with a table saw. Safety rules with a table saw. Number one, make sure that the blade of the table saw is sharp so that you have a clean cut and there's no bad edge or anything. Number two, you can avoid kickback of the table saw by standing to the side of the blade so that it's not directly in line with it. Okay, the miter saw. Miter saw safety rules. Number one, you can't wear any gloves, jewelry, loose clothing, or dangling objects when operating. And number two is make sure you keep your hands and fingers at least 6 inches away from the blade when operating. Okay, now to the bandsaw safety rules. Number one of the bandsaw safety rules is make sure the saw is at full speed before you start cutting. Number two, make sure your wooden piece is held flat on the table when you're cutting. Number three, make sure your hands are at least 4 inches away from the blade when cutting. And number four is turn off the saw as soon as you are finished and never walk away from the blade while it is in motion. Okay, now for the belt sander safety rules. Number one, do not operate the belt sander if it has rips or it's torn. Number two, make sure you're always standing on the down travel side of the belt. Number three, only make adjustments when the sander is at a complete stop. And number four, make sure you keep your fingers away from the abrasive surface of the belt sander. Now for the router safety rules. For the router safety rules, number one, make sure that all bits, attachments, clamps, and locking devices are secure before starting the router. Number two, make sure the on-off switch is off before connecting the power. And number three, make sure you're not wearing any jewelry, loose clothing, or dangling objects when you're operating. Now for the laser engraver safety rules. Number one is make sure you never leave the laser engraver unattended. And number two is never attempt to cut metal with the laser cutter. And the hand drill safety rules finally. Number one rule is make sure you can't wear any jewelry, loose clothing, or dangling objects when operating once again. Number two, make sure the object that you're drilling is secure and is in place. Thank you for watching my lab safety video.